When the original Star Wars trilogy concluded in the 1980s, there were quite a few attempts to launch a similar family-friendly science fiction fantasy franchise, and The Dark Tower could be mistaken for one of them. It's apparently set in the present day, but the rumpled fashions and the dated visual effects have a Reagan-era feel to them, and the story has a second-hand clunkiness. If you had watched it on VHS 30 years ago during an all-night video marathon that included Masters of the Universe and the never-ending story, you probably would have been happy with its icky monsters and its dimension-hopping adventures. But watching it in 2017, when you've been primed to expect the long-awaited first installment in a mega-budget saga based on a revered series of Stephen King novels, is a different matter. In that light, The Dark Tower is pretty ropey. More like this Film Review Detroit is an antidote to summer blockbusters. Film Review Dunkirk is a 5-star triumph. Film Review Should you see the new Spider-Man film? If the novels are renowned from the sprawling, postmodern complexity, King himself turns up as a character. The plot of the film is all too simple. The bland protagonist is Jake Tom Taylor, a 12-year-old boy who lives in New York with his mother and his not very nice stepfather. He keeps having vivid nightmares about battles between good and evil in a galaxy far, far away. And, because he is a boy in a film, he keeps drawing remarkably proficient pencil sketches of these battles, which he obligingly pins all over his bedroom walls. Eventually, he finds a teleport machine that sends him whooshing from our planet that is Keystone Earth to the bleak, post-apocalyptic planet he's been dreaming about, that is Midworld. Once there, he encounters the two men who have been cropping up in his visions. First, there is the noble Roland Idris Elba, a grizzled Wild West-style sharpshooter who used to be one of the planet's legendary defenders, the Gunslingers. Next, there is his archenemy, Walter Matthew McConaughey, who is also known as the Man in Black. With his monochrome wardrobe, his gelled hair, and his tanned, tight-skinned handsomeness, Walter looks as if he should be headlining a conjuring show in Las Vegas. It's an unhelpful nickname, considering that Roland wears black, too, but it's certainly accurate. With his monochrome wardrobe, his gelled hair, and his tanned, tight-skinned handsomeness, Walter looks as if he should be headlining a conjuring show in Las Vegas. Instead, he wants to destroy a monumental skyscraper called the Dark Tower. It may or may not be on Midworld, I'm not sure. The only way to do so, it seems, is to kidnap psychic children from Keystone Earth, and use their amplified brainwaves to zap the tower to pieces. You won't be surprised to learn that Jake's own psychic abilities, or shine, are just what Walter needs. Workmanlike efficiency. To summarize, much of the Dark Tower is set on a desert planet that is definitely not Tatooine, because it has 2 moons in the sky, rather than 2 suns. Jake, who is definitely not Luke Skywalker, discovers that he is not an ordinary, mop-top kid, but an intergalactic savior with innate supernatural powers. Roland, who is definitely not Obi-Wan Kenobi, is a mysterious loner who teaches Jake how to use antique weaponry, and who is the last in an ancient order of spiritual knights, but definitely not their Jedi. And Walter, who is definitely not Darth Vader, is a nefarious wizard who dresses in black, and who uses his telepathy and telekinesis to kill anyone who gets on his nerves. To be fair, The Dark Tower is hardly the first film to draw around a Star Wars-shaped template. What counts are the details inside the rough outline. But the director and co-writer, Nikolai Arcel, has filled it with steampunk, western, and Arthurian elements that are far too vague and illogical to make us forget George Lucas' elegant mythology. Roland explains to Jake that the eponymous tower stops our universe being ravaged by demons. But how does it work? Who built it? Why can children topple it? And why would Walter and his minions want to be overrun by demons? Anyway, the editor's brief seems to have been to get the film over with as soon as possible. Perhaps a longer version of the film would have answered some of these questions. At 95 minutes, the current version doesn't even have time to ask them. Admittedly, there is a lot to be said for a summer blockbuster which is trimmer than the no customary twatto 3 hours. But it's clear that The Dark Tower wasn't always intended to be as short as it is. There must have been swathes of it that were deemed unusable, because it has been chopped up into bite-sized scraps. Some scenes are barely intelligible and some characters are barely there. On Midworld, for instance, Jake exchanges flirtatious glances with a blonde girl he meets in a remote shanty town, but that's the beginning and end of the nascent romance. Princess Leia, she ain't. The editor's brief seems to have been to get the film over with as soon as possible. And yet the Dark Tower isn't a complete disaster. Elba is a tough but twinkle-eyed hero. McConaughey enjoys himself as a reptilian villain, and much of the film gets its goody-baddies job done with workmanlike efficiency. It's just that it never come across as the grand culmination of a 10-year process to adapt an epic 8-novel cycle. It comes across as a cash-in that someone scribbled on the back of an envelope after seeing Return of the Jedi. If you would like to comment on this story or anything else you have seen on BBC Culture, head over to our Facebook page or message us on Twitter. And if you liked this story, sign up for the weekly BBC.com features newsletter, called If You Only Read 6 Things This Week. A hand-picked selection of stories from BBC Future, Earth, Culture, Capital, Travel and Autos, delivered to your inbox every Friday.